I don't like to get caught in a valuation trap. I do not like the idea of a unicorn. They're not sustainable. Historically, they're not sustainable. When that unicorn hits a liquidity event, such as an IPO, the bankers and the current equity holders have a liquidity event and they cash out and they do quite well. But the new equity holders that come in the public markets usually take a big hit because the market knows that company at that valuation isn't sustainable.
If you're trying to make sense out of a world where everyone seems to be launching the next unicorn and where valuations seem to have little correlation to corporate values or even the value of revenue or profit generated, if you're running a business without VC investment and you constantly feel like you're pushing water uphill, or you feel that your less glamorous but profitable business is nothing compared with those startups that keep getting new rounds of funding, then this is the podcast for you. I'm Jane Singer, and you're listening to A Seat at the Table. Each week, I sit down with industry leaders, entrepreneurs, innovators, and authors who share their insights, expertise, experience, and vision for the future of business. If you're looking for a candid view of the real opportunities for startups and brand acquisitions, then Brian Esposito is your man. Brian has a 20-year track record of successfully advising, investing, and nurturing brands across an industrial spectrum that runs from fashion and beauty to technology and entertainment, as well as charities and transportation, and a lot more. He's a natural-born connector who has the unique ability to see often overlooked opportunities in seemingly disparate assets. Today, Brian shares his insights on what successful startups have in common, why he doesn't believe in unicorns, the importance of having a good advisory team, and the overlooked opportunities in small companies. Before we get started, if you're looking to develop knitwear collections that will be a hit in any market, then Spin Expo is the place to go. It's the primary exhibition for yarns and knitwear. The fair is a rich resource featuring well-edited, high-quality collections, as well as cutting-edge technical innovation. Not to mention outstanding trend information that cannot be found anywhere else. You can learn more at spinexpo.com. That's www.spinexpo.com. There's also a link in the show notes. And check out our website. You can find all of the previous episodes of A Seat at the Table, the show notes, news about upcoming events, and lots of other useful information. You can find it at seat.fm. That's www.seat.fm. FM because it's a podcast. Now let's hear Brian's key principles for running a successful brand or business. Brian, it's so great to have you on the show today. I was looking at the number of companies that you've founded, running across such a diverse range of industries, from apparel to music to aerospace, right, to crypto. I mean, there's nothing you haven't had your hands in. I guess I'll jump right in and say, what have you learned? What's the big takeaway from all of this?
Yeah. I mean, the big takeaway that I was building was as I was going through this path of being an entrepreneur, I realized I saw opportunities that the world or my colleagues didn't see like I saw.
Right.
And I was often invited into other people's companies. And what happened time and time again was that I was used for the way that I think, my resources, my relationships, my time. And I expected initially I did it because that's just my nature. I'm a connector. So I love to connect A and B and see great things happen. But what became very disheartening during that process, and it was 15 years of me operating that way, was that I connected people and companies that ran off to do amazing things and built substantial companies or substantial products, services, IP, technology, and they just completely neglected the fact that I was there nurturing the relationship, bringing it together and putting it together in a way where I saw the opportunity. And then I said I had to stop that model. So that's what led me to start creating all these different companies, was to create my own world and then invite people into my ecosystem so I can have control over the outcome, so I can ensure that I'm not taken advantage of or left in the dust.
Right.
And that's when I began building all these different companies. And I did it over the last 20 years. So presently there's over 75 entities inside of the holding company. The holding company is wholly owned by myself.
Wow.
At this point, I've accumulated over 150 joint ventures from around the world and operating in over 25 different cities, as well as over in 25 different industries. And the entire model is to create value, share resources, create value, build opportunities, and create products, technology, IP, solutions for the market and get it priced correctly and distribute it into the market where we can build businesses upon them. So that's what I've built, and by no means was it easy. I created a mess at some point, but I knew I didn't want people to take advantage of me anymore. I knew that had to stop.
Right. Yeah, I think that sometimes people find themselves in that situation because, like you said, you get into it with good intentions and things just take off, and before you know it, it's not what you envisioned. At least the role that you play is not what you envisioned.
Exactly, or the lack of respect, appreciation, and some kind of reward. It rarely happens when someone does the right thing. That's why there's lawyers. That's why there's
Right.
accounting, to make sure there's accountability and to paper things up. And that's not my nature. I'm a Bob Gaudio, Frankie Valli kind of guy where it's a handshake that lasts for 100 years. But unfortunately, that's not the world that we live in anymore.
Yeah, that is sad, but that is very true. And that brings me to the next point. As someone who's built many, many successful companies, as we were saying, across many different industries, right now, I mean, we seem to live in an era where the mantra is monetize or die. And do you feel that that drives companies to greater success, or do you feel that in some way that hinders success?
It depends on the leadership. I'm not a fan of monetizing by cutting costs and firing people and squeezing out profits. But I am a big believer in creating businesses that have real earnings and real positive earnings. That's the businesses that we build. That's the businesses that I want to be involved with. I don't like to get caught in a valuation trap. I do not like the idea of a unicorn. They're not sustainable. Historically, they're not sustainable. When that unicorn hits a liquidity event, such as an IPO, the bankers and the current equity holders have a liquidity event and they cash out and they do quite well. But the new equity holders that come in the public markets usually take a big hit because the market knows that that company at that valuation isn't sustainable. So I do believe monetize. I do believe if you're going to be in business, you have to make money. That's the reality. That's the way it always used to be. You would
Right.
build a product, you would build a service, you would go to the market, you'd find a profit, and you would take care of yourself, your employees, and you would market the business. And I'm very old school in the way that I think in all the businesses that I'm involved with or that we have holdings in, there's a consistency across them all, no matter what the industry, where they have to fulfill a need and they have to price their opportunity that they're delivering to the market accordingly, and that the market can adapt those prices, and there's a profit. And you grow from those profits. The cash flows that the business generates is the fuel to your company. And in this market, it's the only time I've ever said in my career over the last year or so was what a great time to take on debt. They're basically giving away free money or very low bank rate debt. And if you had earnings and if you had revenues, you can go out and borrow money to help fuel your company and help grow your company.
Do you think that the fact that there is so much cheap money around, that on the one hand it's helped good companies get started, but do you think that it's also enabled people to be a little more careless?
Possibly the younger entrepreneur that doesn't have the experience as to where to properly place the money. Possibly. I'm a you feed the ducks when they're quacking kind of guy. If they're giving out money, fill out the forms, have your accounting, take the time and have responsibility and go get that money. They're going to give it to somebody, so why not be you? And
Right.
then it really depends on your ethics and your integrity on how you use that money. I highly don't recommend you bring in a bunch of very low rated debt and buy a Ferrari with it.
Right.
Use it appropriately to hire people or promote your business. I don't like the idea of taking it in to maybe build technologies that you don't have a really firm plan on having a date where you launch it. Because the
Right.
idea of building a lot of tech, there's a term called feature creatures. A lot of engineers and a lot of developers keep developing a product and it's never ready. And then the investors or the believers of that company continue to put money into it, and that can go on forever. So in some cases, you got to make sure you're using the money properly to help, fuel business and not put it in the ideas of hopes of a business.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I think that we do live in a market where there is a demand, at least on the consumer side, on a marketing point of view, for constant newness, right? This next bright, shiny object, which fuels that, sort of front-end development on things. Do you feel that there's been too much attention on front-end development and not enough on improving quality or stability? Or do you feel that you just have to keep driving that?
I definitely feel there's a lot of attention on front end development. And a big reason is that people will go on their LinkedIn or open the Wall Street Journal and see these companies raise massive amounts of money from VCs or investment banks, and they don't even have a profit. So a lot of people fall into this trap, and it's not their fault. That's just the mousetrap that the world's on, is come up with an idea, go out and raise money, run out of money, raise money again, run out of money, raise money again. And when you're on that routine, it's detrimental to your health and well-being, because at some point you're diluted out of your own company. At some point you don't have any money to continue to fuel your operations or your business. So yeah, I do unfortunately see many times where companies get caught in the idea of, let's just build something and get a lot of attention. Somebody's going to want it. And that's dangerous. That's a dangerous mentality. And the reason people see and feel that is because of the success that other companies have had, because they have the right relationships, they have the right access to capital, and it's who you know. It's an unfortunate world we live in, but it's across every different industry that I personally operate in. Opportunities come and go to relationships. And you can have the best thing in the world, but if you don't know where to bring it to or who to bring it to, it won't see the light of day.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think that particularly in the current economy where everyone's trying to do things globally, it probably becomes even more complicated.
Absolutely does. And it's the market's on fire, and at some point there'll be a correction in that, and it's going to go back to basics, real companies generating real earnings. I sound like 95 years old, but if you gotta build businesses that make money. You got to build businesses that have earnings. Because even those success stories that have crazy valuations,
right,
it will get corrected. And I often reference the Ubers of the world, the Facebooks of the world. When they IPO'd, that was the ceiling. The market said this is not sustainable. They're not even making any money, and they crashed. Facebook lost half its value after the IPO. It has come up dramatically since, but if you bought on that initial investment when it went public, you lost half your money. And if you held it and you believed in it, then yeah, you broke even, or hopefully even made more money. But the market's not stupid, and private companies should operate in the same mentality that public companies do. They should operate with full auditing and accountability. They should manage their business in the way as if they were a public company. Therefore, they're doing things with the stringent business practices. They're making sure that there's every profit that they possibly can without cheating themselves or without cutting costs where it shouldn't be. They just in today's world, you got to pivot, you got to survive, you got to find ways to make money. Got to pay your bills. And the only way to do that, if you're an entrepreneur or a business person, is to find a need for your product or services. And one of the things I love to do in this chapter of my life, I get to work with startups, even up to Fortune 500 companies. And I can just create value. I can do peanut butter and jelly and taking everything that I've built and pair it correctly with different markets, new ideas, new concepts, a new use case. I love dormant assets. I love companies that are floundering and don't know what to do, because I can come in and say, hey, let's go down this channel. Let me connect you with this company or this market. There's a whole other need for your product that you're not even thinking about. And it's fun, exciting. It brings life back into these companies. But still, at the end of the day, it's got to make money. It can't be BS fluff or things that aren't tangible.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that you're right. People do see the hype surrounding unicorns and, of course, the money. And everybody wants to go down that path. And at some point, as you're pointing out very correctly, the end will come. And it will probably come with a crash rather than a soft landing.
Yes, I firmly believe. Well, I mean, history has proven that many times. You shouldn't be surprised when it happens again.
And we always are.
Right?
So having gotten involved in so many startups, many of which have been very successful, what do you think, what determines someone who starts up and will end up being successful? Where do the successful guys go right and the other guys go wrong? We're going to take a quick break now, and then we'll be right back.
If you're a pet owner who wants real talk on training, behavior, and everyday life with animals, check out the Fresh Patch Podcast. Hosted by Drew and Gabe, we cover the wins, the challenges, and everything in between. So wherever you listen, search the Fresh Patch Podcast, where good pets get it.
I love successful founders or entrepreneurs that are very calculated. And even when it comes down to their equity, I mean, people are very loose with equity, especially when they have a startup, because I think that psychologically they're excited. They want people involved. You need to treat your equity like it's oxygen, and every half a point has to be like a brain surgeon. Who does it go to? Who deserves it? Do you claw back from people that aren't performing or offering any value? So a real valuation. Well, there's three things that I love to look for.
Okay.
A is you're taking the giant risk. Let's say you're a brand new startup. You left your corporate job. You're no longer a teacher, or whatever the case may be. And I love people that do that. I'm addicted to that because that's what I do. That takes a very strong, courageous person. Then they do a lot of work and putting decks together and coming up with all these great images and concepts and what their mission is and what product they're offering. The one thing they all miss is go to an accounting firm and get a correct valuation on the company that you're building. Don't make up a valuation, because that is the foundation as to where your company goes. If you say your company is valued at $1 million and you raised 200,000, you gave up 20% of your company. Well, maybe your company at that point should have been valued at 2 million or should have been valued at 5 million. You don't know that unless you go to a seasoned professional firm, such as a Markham, a Deloitte, a PwC. Get a real valuation done, and then start to divvy up your equity as to fundraising, friends and family, or however you decide to go into the market. And then next, build advisors. Your advisors are your bloodline to access to growth and opportunity. If you don't know the advisors that you think you should have, go on places like LinkedIn and start to build a powerful team around the company that you're building. Don't be afraid, reach out to people, ask them for help. Go to somebody in the industry that you're going into and say, I love what you're doing. I would love to have you join my advisory board. Your advisory board are the people that if they put their name on it, they're going to work hard for you. They want you to succeed. They don't want you to fail. And they'll open up a ton of opportunities for you if they believe in you and that they see that you're working hard and that you're working smart. And from there, the rest should fall into play. I mean, if you should be lean and mean, you don't need to hire 1 million people to try to build a popularity contest. Go into the market with something, go into the market small, create a product, create a service, get one customer. If you get one customer, it validates what you're doing. It gives you some self-worth. It gives you some good motivation and momentum. And then go get another customer. And then go get another customer and build it one customer at a time. But do not raise money. Go run your business, run out of money. Then go raise money again. Because when you stop running your business and you're raising money, you're sacrificing the business. There's nobody home to watch the house. So I hate to see companies get caught in that trap. It's very easy to do because that's what people are used to. But when I come in and companies want to bring me onto their teams or they want to work with me, it's okay. Well, how do we make money right now? What do we got to do to create value?
I think that's a very important point. And you're right. So often, particularly if you have funding, it's easy to spend it and feel that there's a lot of things you need and feel that the sales will come in a lot sooner than they do. So you end up running, like you said, you run out of money, and then you got to spend all your time focusing on getting more money. When you look at a lot of today's market, I mean, I think that we came out of an era where companies were big conglomerates, and then we start to see people spinning things off. Plus we see a trend towards people developing very niche companies, very specialized companies. How do you see that playing out?
I love that. I love the boutique niche market. And I mean, I would love to see that continue to fuel innovation. And that's where you see real creativity flourish, because you don't have management or C-level executives that love their jobs and afraid to take risks. They just stay in that lane and they don't really do anything. It's a shame when you see these very big companies with a lot of access and a lot of resources not create new products. What they'll do is they'll buy somebody else's products or services that took that risk and created that niche offering. That I love to do. I consider myself in that space. I've always loved the mom and pop market. I think that's the fuel of a lot of economies. I think that's a great way to connect with consumers and the market, is to be there, to be on the streets and with the people. That's how you know the market needs something, when you're out in the market and you're experiencing it. Not if you're, well, it used to be if you're in your office building, but now if you're on your Zoom calls, you really don't know what the market needs. You're completely isolated from reality. But those niche boutique markets and entrepreneurs and creators love it. I love that entire space, and I think that's going to continue to fuel a lot more opportunities. It's even a great time, not for landlords, but what a great time for these people to go into really well-priced buildings or spaces with lower rents now because of the economy and that commercial market taking a hit. So companies can really create opportunities now, have a lot more profit to be able to flourish when they rent a space or are involved in some sort of direct-to-consumer opportunity. And I mean, it's a great time right now to fuel innovation. The world needs it, and people have shifted their work-life balance where I think they have a lot more time on their hands because a lot of people are working from home. I don't think majority of people enjoy that disconnect. A lot of the tech companies we work with, they've said internally they see a 30-40% decline in productivity when people are not in the same room working together. And a lot of industries need the people in the same room working together. That's how they can come up with ideas, that's how they can solve problems, that's how they can create new opportunities. So right now people are craving to do something new, and you're forced to maybe get off your typical routine and go into the market as an entrepreneur now because of the way the world is. So I hope to see people go after their dreams and make something of themselves.
Yeah, well, I think that there is a tremendous opportunity at the moment. I think anytime there's disruption, right, it shakes things up, and therefore it opens a path if you're able to see where that path is. Now, getting back to what you had touched upon before, which is about larger companies acquiring smaller companies, and we do see a lot of that in the industry, a lot of brand roll-ups, particularly of D2C brands, larger companies trying to grow by acquiring these brands. How do you see, from the point of view of someone who manages many companies, what's the ideal way when a larger company is bringing in a smaller brand? Because it appears to me that oftentimes that brand gets melded into the bigger company, which, on paper seems to make sense. But then on the other hand, sometimes that brand loses what made it so special.
All the time. All the time.
I mean, you do this, so how do you manage that so that it's profitable as possible for the umbrella company, so to speak, but also manage to keep that niche brand, keep what made it special?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, the reality is when it's a Fortune 500 company acquiring these brands, they don't realize it's the culture of that company and that brand that made it so special and that connectivity that they had in the market. I can't fix that. I know in our situation, when we work or merge with companies or have some sort of an acquisition plan, we don't want to disrupt what made it special. I mean, it's not going to happen. Let's just say Pepsi bought Coca-Cola. I don't think they're going to change the Coca-Cola recipe, but a lot of big companies that acquire these smaller brands, they immediately go to profitability and they start to dilute the brand quality. They start to utilize their pipeline of suppliers and components, and the consumer or the user is not stupid. They know immediately that there's something different. They know it's not working as effectively as it used to. And at the end of the day, it's all because the company acquired a smaller company for a lot of money, and they have to justify that was a profitable transaction. And they kill the brand. And it happens all the time. They completely kill the brand. It happens so much in the fashion industry when these brands are acquired by these big corporations. It's you see companies that are sold for 800 million. A few years later, they're resold for 20 million. Like it's just I can't solve that. But what should happen is that these companies that get acquired, they should be left alone. They should just be given more support and resources and advertising budgets, and let the teams that built those companies, if they choose to stay on, to continue to run that business. They should not be it shouldn't be meddled with. They should just put more gasoline on the fire that they already created.
Do you think that, I realize that, and what you're saying is truly the case. On the one hand, companies have paid a lot of money to acquire these brands, so they need to get that money back. They need to show that what I put into it is actually driving some kind of a return. And at the same time, you're right, the first thing that goes is quality. I mean, literally across the board. No matter what it is, everyone can always tell you, you're right, when a brand's been acquired, first thing is the quality that goes. If you wanted to, as a larger company, buying some of these smaller brands, in your opinion, do you just need a longer timeline in order to be able to justify that investment? Is that the problem? Or do you think they're paying too much for these companies? Why is that model of being able to acquire the company, let it do what it's always been doing well, but now do it even better because it has that extra platform that the big company brings in? Why does that not happen?
I can give my opinion because I'm not internal on these acquisitions, but from my experience and what I've seen and what I've experienced, it gets handed over into a P&L, and it's a game of numbers. There's somebody in an office that's just looking at numbers. They're not looking at what the brand means to the market, what its specialty is. That's irrelevant when it goes into a certain room of people. All they're looking at is numbers, and they got to cut costs, and they got to make that acquisition. They got to justify the acquisition, and then it gets handed into somebody who, and I feel bad for that person or those persons, because now their job is profitability. That's all they're worried about, and that investment, they want to see it returned in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, whatever the number is, and they're just getting a calculator out and seeing what they need to do to get the investment back. And they don't realize the damage that they're causing to the brand or to the brand's ownership of that market. Yeah, there might be a lot of times where companies acquire brands and they purposely want to kill them. They just want to get them out of the market so their other brands can have more shelf space or have more items on the rack. That the motivators behind these acquisitions, I don't know. I know they happen maybe for companies to stay relevant. Now, they're also stealing distribution. I shouldn't say stealing. They're acquiring distribution routes that they may not have. They're acquiring customers or databases that they may not have. So there's a lot of additional value where that parent company can sell them ancillary products and boost those profitabilities on items that the consumer may not have known about or bought, that were buying one thing. But now, because it's in this umbrella parent company, they're marketing them all kinds of different things. So the reasoning behind it, the mathematics behind it, it's not about the brand, unfortunately. It's about the numbers, and cannibalization of the market as well. I wish I can give you more details as to why I think every entity that has these acquisition models or growth by acquisition, some of them really love the brands and they let them continue to operate and they let them continue to flourish. And, those are the ones that do really well. For example, I love the Vera Bradley acquisition of Pura Vida bracelets. I think from afar, and we used to be a Pura Vida dealer many, many years ago. I think we were their first retailer or distributor. It looks like they're letting them continue to manage and operate the brand, and the consumer may not even know. Those are the best ones, when the consumer doesn't even know it was acquired, and the brand can continue to have great R&D, have that great momentum, and continue to create unique and new wonderful products that they know the market needs. No, it's case by case, but unfortunately, as well as I know, most of them get destroyed, and the bigger brand just owns more and more shelf.
It's true, and it's sad, but it is the way it seems to go. So, looking at all the different sectors that you're involved in, and you're hands-on in so many that you're sort of the ideal guy to ask this question to, but where do you see the big growth opportunity? From a sector point of view, obviously there's companies in each sector that'll do better or worse, but do you see sectors that look like there's going to be a lot of growth or opportunity?
Yeah, well, the ones we're participating in, again, there's over 25 industries or sectors that I'm involved with, but private aviation is on fire. We have a great holding called Starjets International. It's a public private jet charter company. And especially, I mean, the growth of private aviation was on a very nice uprise regardless, but since the pandemic hit, the wealth of the world much rather charter a jet than go to an airport or commercial airport, get on a commercial airliner and buy a first class ticket. Initially, it was the stress and fear of COVID and obviously potentially getting sick. They would rather put their family in a much safer environment and charter a jet. Now that's become a lifestyle, and the demand for private aviation, the pricing is becoming, because the supply is they continue to put more and more aircraft into the supply. It depends how many people, but it's getting close to what a first class ticket would be. So I don't know, if you had family of 6 or 8 that were in first class, it's not even yet, but it's getting closer. We'll just book a jet and we'll very comfortably go to the FBO and not have to go through any of the craziness at an airport and have a better quality of life. That lifestyle is here, and that's going to stay. And that industry is on fire. We have a great holdings called Nodal, which is offering wireless connectivity. We built the world's largest wireless network. So anything that's based around connectivity and moving data around the world in a private, secure manner, which Nodal does. Very hot sector, or IoT. That sector is on fire. That's what Nodal is. We're connecting hundreds of millions of IoT devices around the world. Obviously, blockchain and cryptocurrency, we have great holdings there. But the way that my mind works, it depends on your spending habits and your lifestyle. Anybody can make a nice living in any industry if they're servicing a need and have a nice stream of business. Anybody can be successful. It doesn't mean you have to drive a Ferrari to label yourself successful, but you can control your own world, create a company, create products, create services, and have a nice life. And you don't have to answer to anybody else but yourself. The possibilities are there, especially in first world countries like the USA and many others. There's so many opportunities to go into a market or go into a sector and create a nice life and create a happy life.
You bring that up because I think that all the hype surrounding these huge valuations has made people who previously had good businesses, right? If you looked at it, the amount of cash that business was throwing off and the lifestyle it was enabling that person to lead. So many people I know who have those kind of businesses just feel demoralized because they're not running a gazillion-dollar business. And you know what I'm saying? It's sort of held up this unrealistic benchmark for people. And I thought to myself, it's really a pity because, like you say, there's opportunities for people to make equally, if not in some cases, better income than they made with a corporate job. And yet they feel, oh, if my business isn't, the next unicorn, then I'm a loser. We're going to take a quick break now, and then we'll be right back.
We were hiring when we were making 50 to 100K monthly losses.
And why? Welcome to episode 1.
I can't think of a single founder who's been around for a decent amount of time in business who hasn't had their tunnel of year. This was that year. We're going to be okay, yeah, Sheree. Some are going to hear this and think, you TDP. But hear me out. You only have to do the math to understand that very soon we were $500,000 down.
I get insulted when I see those moments where a company gets an injection of 100 million, 500 million, $1 billion, and they're not making any profit. But the VCs behind them or the investment bankers behind them, it's too big to fail. It's not healthy for an entrepreneur to see that. It can be a motivator, but it typically makes you feel inferior and it makes you feel like you're inadequate because you're not at that level, but you can't compare yourself to anybody. You gotta, if I woke up every morning and compare myself to Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, or Elon Musk, I feel awful. I'd want to kill myself. You can't do that. You have to look at your small accomplishments, your small wins, feel self-worth, feel proud of yourself, create momentum, and do not compare yourself to anybody. If you want to look to people to help motivate you or inspire you, that's okay. That's healthy. But if you're looking at somebody that, multi-billionaire, and you're making a few $100,000 a year in your business, the gap is too big. You cannot compare yourself to that. You should just focus on how great it is that you even have $1 coming into your business, and the fact that you connected with the consumer or enterprise customer that's buying what you have to offer. That's a magical moment. You have something, build upon that. Don't waste time feeling bad that you're not at a level that is unrealistic. Don't even think. If you get to that level, God bless you. But right now, you know where you're at. You know what you can do, and you should feel great about that.
I think that's an important point that a lot of people need to hear. Now, we've talked about holding on to these businesses, investing in these businesses. At what point, when you have a business, do you need to call quits if the company just isn't making money? At what point do you have to fold up your tent and go home, do you think, on that particular business?
The only time I say fold up your tent is if you're not happy and you're miserable, because life is precious. If it's just about the money, but you love what you're doing, but you can't get a break, find a break, find the moment. So many times, I never look at competition. On paper, I've done some of the best deals and some of the best relationships with my competitors on paper. If you're failing or you can't figure it out, but you have something, go talk to a small business competitor and say, is there a way we can work together? And now more than ever, companies and people need to work together. They need to find a way to survive. The world is completely upside down. There's so much uncertainty, unrest. Everybody's scared, living in stress, living in anxiety and fear. Now is when we come together and work together. There's no such thing as competitors. There's survival. How do we survive? And again, unless you're miserable and you hate what you're doing, close up shop and find something that you love to do. But if you still have that passion and fire inside of you, but you just don't know where to go, keep at it. Timing is very important. You'll find it, but you won't find it if you give up. You got to be
absolutely.
In the game.
I mean, I think what you're pointing to seems to be a thread that I hear again and again and again from people who have built successful businesses or are running successful operations, and that really is, it's less about genius, right? It's more about consistency, persistency. It's being in for the long game, and I think it's easy to get discouraged when you hit a time like the pandemic if you happen to have been on the wrong side of the economy during that. But I think a lot of people are wondering, do we still keep going, or are we, just kidding ourselves?
Right. Well, consistency is something I preach. I love that you said that word. That's so important to your integrity and to your maneuvers and your peers and customers. They want to see someone that's consistent in the way that they talk, their actions, their motivators. And that could be good or bad. So hopefully your consistent maneuvers are of an ethical place with great integrity. And just by doing that, if people like you and they believe that you're genuine, you will build a big business. You just have to stay at it. You just got to get one customer at a time and one path at a time. But if you're out there and you're not connecting with people because you're trying to make money, people smell that. They don't want to just be a number to you or someone that's just a bill or a vendor or a customer. They want to have a connection with you. They want to believe that there's something of substance between the relationship and not just a financial sale.
That's very true nowadays. I think that's part of the whole transparency movement that we're seeing across the entire, I don't want to say supply chain, but from marketing through to what goes into the product. People really want to see what's behind the scenes in that respect. It builds that level of trust.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. So just one more question, and that is, what's next for Brian Esposito? Because it sounds to me that there's very little that you haven't done and conquered.
Yeah, every day is a great new opportunity. Again, now, my biggest fault is that I see the world differently. I see needs that the market needs, and I want to create them. And thankfully, I've been through hell, so very grateful that I've survived this journey that I've been on, and I think I'm surrounded with a great team of professionals and awesome management, and it's just it's fun. I'm at a point where it's very rewarding for me to take everything that I've learned in my experiences and relationships and be able to utilize them. The experiences alone, if I can go back in time, I can say now it all makes sense because I'm using those experiences now to help companies survive, pivot, and grow because I've been through it. And
right.
For what's next for me is just to continue to do good work with good people. The money does follow. It's a byproduct of that formula, and hopefully get to continue to talk with great people like you, share my story, and because of our conversation, hopefully somebody's listening that wants to reach out to me, and that's how the dominoes continue to fall.
Well, I think a lot of people are going to want to reach out to you, Brian, and you're a connector. So how do people connect with you?
Yes, I use LinkedIn and Twitter and
Okay.
the corporate site. So on LinkedIn and Twitter, it's Brian J. Esposito. The corporate site's EIE.ROCKS, so EIE.rocks. And Jane, I think, as you know, I get back to everybody as quickly as I can. If you give me a little bit of your time, I respect and admire that. So you get a little bit of mine back. And again, anybody feel free to reach out to me anytime.
Perfect. Well, Brian, thank you so much. It's been a total pleasure talking to you. I have learned a tremendous amount, and I wish you continued success.
Thank you, Jane. You too. I really appreciate the opportunity.
If you enjoyed this episode of A Seat at the Table, join me each week when I sit down with industry leaders, innovators, entrepreneurs, and authors who share their expertise, experience, and insights about succeeding in business and in life. And make sure to visit Spin Expo. From trend information to technical innovation, Spin Expo is the primary exhibition for yarns and knitwear. The fair provides well-edited forums featuring high-quality products that are bursting with creativity. To learn more, go to spinexpo.com. That's www.spinexpo.com. You can also find a link in the show notes for this episode. And don't forget to check out our podcast website, where you can find all of the previous episodes of the Seat at the Table podcast, the show notes, news about our upcoming masterclass series, and lots of other useful information. You can find it at seat.fm. That's www.seat.fm. FM because it's a podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Jane Singer, and I'll see you in the next podcast episode.